In this video, I'm going to be explaining the differences between these two editions of the Encyclopaedia Britannica Propaedia. The black one is the one that I covered in the previous video. This brown one is the other one that I couldn't find for the last video, and it shows some of the differences I was talking about. So the black one is 1984. The brown one is 1989. So in just 5 years, all of these changes were made. And I'm also going to show you an example of how you go from the Propaedia to the Micropaedia and the Macropaedia, which I didn't show in the previous video. One of the interesting things, probably the only real thing of value they added to the newer version, the brown Propaedia, is they started referencing the Micropaedia, not just the macro. So we're going to go step by step through the key differences. And we're going to use part 10, which is Adler's part, to show the differences in both. So this is the old version that has generally more content, except for the lack of references to the Micropaedia, which are the shorter articles, the like 2 to 3 paragraph articles. So both editions have this introduction with a named author. Both have an intro or an overview of the part, and both also have an intro to the division. What's missing is this intro at the tertiary level. So history and philosophy of logic, that's missing. And also the page reference numbers to the head note for the part and the division, that's also removed. And then also, as I said, all these references to the article section and other references and all the page numbers, they got rid of all that as well. So I'm going to show you what that looks like now. So here's the 1989 Propaedia. So Adler still has his intro. There's still the intro to the part 10, and there's still the intro to division, the divisional head notes for logic. But then you flip the page, and there's no intro to history and philosophy of logic. There's no references to the head notes, which once you get deep into a part, you're kind of wondering where do I go back to get to the intro to this entire section. So that's useful. One of the things that's new, you see there's the text is wider because you don't have references to anything. So it takes up the whole page. So there's history and philosophy of logic. And here's the exact same page. So you can see the difference. You flip this page over, and that's the rest of this section 10:11. So there's no such thing as sections 10:1, 10:2, all the way to 10:10 and section 10:10. None of those exist. So basically you just go through the section, you have 2 columns, and then that's it. And then you go to the next section, 1012. In here, in the newer brown one, 1989, you go through, there's no head note, so you get straight into history of logic. Then you get into philosophy of logic, that's part B. And then at the bottom, this is where they've put the references. So instead of having the 2-column format, they have this. So there's suggested reading. First, they do the Macropedia, which is the major long articles that can be 10, 20 pages, can be up to like 200 pages. So logic, the history and kinds of, philosophies of the branches of knowledge. And then you have the Micropedia references, and there's 2 types. There's general subjects and there's biographies. And we're going to, in a second, look at one of these Micropedia references so you get the sense of what it's like to actually use this. But I want to show you one other thing first. If you remember from the previous Propaedia video, the major articles are here, and pretty much every major section topic that has an A, like a capital A, capital B, capital C, they pretty much all have a major article that goes with them. So you see here, logic history of, that matches up with here, logic, the history and kinds of. So they rename stuff a little bit, but otherwise it's the same. So that's your first major article. And then you flip the page over. And your second major article is right there. Logic, philosophy of. B, philosophy of logic. And then going back to the newer brown version, you see philosophies of the branches of knowledge. So again, it's renamed a little bit, but otherwise they're they're still referencing the 2 major Macropedia articles, and then they're adding these Micropedia. So you may be thinking, oh, that's just similar to these secondary article sections. But no, these are articles, these are sections of the major Macropedia articles. 11:65, 16:569. Those are references to article sections within the Macropedia. Those are not Micropedia references. So the next thing is actually I'll show you the laws of thought thing now. So you see here there's a reference to Micropedia thought laws of right there. So what you would do is you'd go into your Micropedia and you'd scroll through the top corners just alphabetically until you found what you're looking for. Actually, that's a different one that we'll look at in a second. So THOUE, THRA. And then you find laws of thought. And that's where it starts. that's where it finishes. Alfred North Whitehead, Bertrand Russell, Principia Mathematica. So that's in italics, the title of any work. And you notice there's no reference to Macropedia articles or references to anything else. It's just, that's what it is. So you don't know if you just look it up in the Micropedia, you don't know that there's potentially something in the Macropedia on laws of thought. So then the next thing is they did remove some stuff as well at the level of... So we're going back here now to section 1011, which is the first section. So we're right here, section 1011, History and Philosophy. We're flipping the page over, and we're going down to B, Philosophy of Logic, number 3, the place of logic among the sciences and disciplines. And then there's subpoints A through H, relation of logic to math, relation of logic to computer science, role of logic in the methodology of the empirical sciences, all the way down. Diverse views. So this is the old 1984 edition. Now we're in the newer 1989 edition. We're in section 1011. We go down to B, Philosophy of Logic. And then we go to 3, the place of logic among the sciences and disciplines. And there's no subpoints there. So they just removed all of that stuff. So if you want to just read through and you're thinking, oh, I don't need the references because I'm not going to look anything up, I'll just look it up on Wikipedia, but I want to have all the content, the full content of the outline, you're going to need the older version because the newer version just isn't as complete. So we looked at a reference here to Laws of Thought, which is a Micropedia article. Now let's look up a Macropedia article. We're going to look up set theory. So set theory is in branches of mathematics. We're flipping the page. So first category is set theory. Then there's algebra. Then there's geometry. Then there's analysis. Then there's combinatorics and number theory. Then there's topology. And then algebraic. Sorry, no, those are subpoints. Topology is the last one. And then you get into the suggested reading. So you've got a bunch of Micropedia articles and then a bunch of Micropedia. And the Micropedia ones, notice, are organized by those major headings. So you have algebra, and they're in alphabetical order now, not the order that they were in the article. So you have algebra, analysis, combinatorics and number theory, geometry, and set theory, and topology. And then you have an other area. So you see here under Macropedia, set theory is one of the options. And there's also a reference in the Micropedia here to transfinite number in the Micropedia. So we'll look that up as well. So this is the Macropedia. And this is the set theory article. You have your Zermelo-Frankel axioms, Newman-Bernays-Gödel axioms. Start with your empty set and then go from there. And then you just keep going. So, and then for the Micropedia, we flip to here, and there's your transfinite number. And the basic idea of transfinite number is you can compare the size of different infinite collections of objects. So one infinite set, not all infinite sets are equal in size. So that's what it's like to look stuff up in the, I actually made a post-it here of all the differences, so we just looked at some of them. The main thing that was added is the Micropedia references, which we've just looked at with laws of thought and transfinite numbers. We looked at the way they changed the Macropedia references. We looked up set theory. And, you know, set theory, this is the old version. Set theory in the old version is referenced like this. So it's that main article under set theory. And you see these elements of set theory match up to the sections of the big set theory article. So you see these major headings: Introduction to Set Theory, and then Axiomatic Set Theory. Those line up with A2, Intro to Set Theory, A3, Axiomatic Set Theory. And remember, this whole Propaedia was used as a it was used as a planning document to plan out what was going to be in all the different articles, and especially the macro articles. And the macro articles serve an integrating function. You don't have to duplicate a lot of stuff because you keep it integrated in one macro article. So in terms of what they removed those intros, which they call head notes. They removed some of the bullets, which I showed you. They removed all those article page references and also the head note references. So the whole 2-column format with referencing articles, article sections, other references, that was all removed. Hutchins' foreword was removed. Preece's preface to the 15th edition, which is like a 10-page, pretty in-depth kind of historical explanation of the rationale for a lot of stuff, that was all cut. There's 1-page helps for the reader that was cut. I showed all this stuff in the previous video. Overall page length difference is about 200 pages. So that's pretty much it. the big takeaway here is if you want to get the full Propaedia experience, you can't be using... I mean, there's kind of a trade-off. You kind of need both, but because if you want the Micropedia references, you need to use the new version. If you want the full outline with all those tertiary pieces, you need the older version. And for the use case that I recommend of using it as an outline of knowledge and a way of structuring your knowledge, you definitely want the older version because it has a more complete set of tertiary outline points. But either way, it's just a really, really valuable piece of work that has not been duplicated since, except for possibly the Library of Congress classification system. And I have a whole 1 hour video, multiple videos actually, of me going through the LCC and explaining how it works. Dewey Decimal System also kind of functions this way. And in some ways they both go more in depth. What's missing is they don't explain stuff as well, and there's no references to articles where you can flesh out certain things. So I would recommend using them hand in hand. Use the Propaedia, and then if there's certain areas where you want to go more in depth, you can use the Library of Congress, which is free. Dewey Decimal isn't free. Dewey Decimal, you can get the first 2 or 3 levels free, but then you have to pay for the rest, whereas Library of Congress, you can get all, some of them literally go 10 levels deep. So that's it. If you want all my free resources on all this encyclopedia stuff, as well as the great books of the Western world, other canons, other encyclopedic type stuff like this, check out the link in the description. Make sure you sign up to my newsletter if you want to get updates on my Renaissance course that goes into this kind of encyclopedic learning. And make sure you like and subscribe if you want to get more content like this. If you have any requests or comments, you can leave them down below. And I'll see you in the next video.